is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. All right, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have a lot to discuss with you today. With Invest 97L now having formed this morning, it has come off of the coast of Africa. It's currently in the eastern main development region, and rapid development is likely in the next few days as the system approaches land down the road. If you're in the Antilles, you're going to want to watch this. In the East Coast, you're going to want to pay attention to this because this could be our first big storm of the season. So we're going to go ahead and dive into all the information today. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So starting off right here, we have our areas of interest right here from the National Hurricane Center. We have 96 and 97L. 96L does not look like it's going to be developing. Its chances have continued to go down more and more down the road. But 97L has kind of started to take its place. So we're going to be talking about both of those before we get into the satellite imagery and a few other things as well. Disorganized showers and thunderstorms are occurring in association with a tropical wave over the central tropical Atlantic. Development of this system appears unlikely during the next day or two due to surrounding dry air, but some gradual development of this system is possible during the early to middle part of next week, while the system generally moves northwestward or northward across the central Atlantic. 20% chance of formation in the next 7 days. So that's the situation we have with 96L. Those probabilities have continued to go down, but what's replacing it is 97L over here. This is the big kahuna we've been talking about all week. A tropical wave has now emerged offshore of the western coast of Africa, and it's producing a large area of disorganized showers and thunderstorms. Environmental conditions appear favorable for gradual development of the system, and a tropical depression could form by the middle to latter portion of next week, while it moves west-northwestward at 15 to 20 miles per hour across the eastern and central tropical Atlantic. Locally, heavy rainfall is possible Sunday and Monday across portions of the Cabo Verde Islands. 40% chance of formation in the next 7 days. When they tagged this last night at the 8 p.m. advisory, it was at 20%. Now it's at 40%. And based on the fact that this is now an invest and the fact that this is continuing to rapidly escalate, I would say by the time you see this video, we're maybe seeing a 50% probability or a 60% probability, mainly because of how things have escalated over the last little while. So that's what we have going on in the NHC. Let's go ahead and now shift over to satellite imagery and give a quick analysis on that. So satellite imagery, we can go ahead and pull that up. We'll go to the eastern Atlantic over here just to show you what's going on. So basically, here's the situation. The tropical wave is off of Africa right now, but the convection in the bulk of it is mainly on the southwestern side of the Atlantic of the wave over here, which I do think is pretty interesting. It's a relatively healthy wave. Right here, the vorticity on this is absolutely insane, and the rotation on this is kind of already evident because of how large and robust this system is. So that's one thing we're paying attention to. We actually have some ASCAT data that I want to go ahead and show you. This is from last night, but I think this is going to be interesting regardless. So here's what we have for the ASCAT data right here. Basically, what you're noticing is kind of two large kind of areas of rotation right here. A smaller area of rotation over here on the to the northwest right here, as you're starting to see, and then you have a much stronger southern area of rotation around the Gulf of Guinea over here. So that's something that you're going to want to pay attention to. And the reason you're going to want to pay attention to this is because if the southern vorticity area, which becomes the dominant low and the dominant area, which it already has started to in many ways, this could change the trajectory compared to what some of the models are showing right now. So we'll have to pay very close attention to that as well. But ultimately, what's going to be important over the next few days is how this system's going to start progressing. It's generally moving westward to west-northwestward at this point, although we have seen a few tugs to the north towards the Cabo Verde Islands, and as you'll see in the models, they kind of reflect on this quite a bit, and they kind of have the system just getting yanked further up to the northwest, which I'm going to be honest, I don't see it really getting yanked that far up to the north towards the Cabo Verde Islands. I think the main center is going to stay just south of that, based on what I'm seeing with guidance and based on what I'm seeing with observations. as well. And considering the fact that the conditions aren't nearly as good up there compared to what we're seeing where it's at right now, is also something I'm taking into account as well. But we're going to have to pay very close attention to this as this moves through the main development region. 15 to 20 miles per hour, too, is also relatively quick as well. So we're going to want to pay attention to that as well. Tropical team at Storms United continues to keep you updated on all these threats as well. We've been kind of talking about it behind the scenes. We're debating on what's going to be happening in the next few hours. Pretty much what I would say is the next 24 to 48 hours will be critical for what happens in the long run, and we're going to have to watch a lot of things to keep that in mind. So starting off, we have the European. This is the 0Z. We're going to show this, the GFS, the CMC, the Icon, and all those runs as well. So we'll go ahead and start with the European just to show you this right here. The European has the system organizing, and what I do find kind of interesting is kind of how they're projecting this to kind of get yanked northwestward at this current point, kind of the vorticity. I can go ahead and pull this up for you right here. This is the 850 millibar vorticity. The main vorticity is further to the south right here, how it's kind of going to get pulled up to the northwest towards the Cabo Verde Islands and then start moving west from there. I think given what we're seeing with the rotation being near the Gulf of Guinea, I think what we're going to see is this, but further to the south, like maybe south of the Cabo Verde Islands, given the information that we have so far. So we'll have to pay attention to that as well, and it'll be very interesting to see how the 12Z and the 0Z for tomorrow kind of react to this new data that's coming in. So we'll keep an eye on that, but ultimately it has the system organizing and developing as it's moving westward because of a pretty strong Azores high right here that's allowing for that to happen. Same with a pretty strong ridge over here off in Canada, and then you're going to have the system kind of, at least according to this, moving up to the north. Now granted, this is taking into account the system being yanked up northeast towards the Cabo Verdes, where personally, given the data that we have, I don't think that's going to be happening as kind of robustly and as discreetly and as obvious, as strongly as this model is showing, given the further south area of that rotation. So we'll have to keep an eye on it. But ultimately, as the system approaches the Lesser Antilles, you're looking at this becoming a tropical storm in the next 7 days or so, and then as the system moves further to the west, it's expected to strengthen up to hurricane strength as it potentially moves towards the Bahamas, then starts to move towards the southeastern United States. And the European is a pretty interesting setup right here, as it's moving towards New England, as it's moving towards Massachusetts and Maine, expecting to make landfall in those areas right here as it hugs along the east coast of the United States. Granted, by the time this does happen, this is 2 weeks out, so you really need to take this with a huge pinch of salt. And also, this isn't taking into account what the ASCAT data is showing with this tropical wave currently over off the coast in the eastern Atlantic at this current point. So that's also something you're going to want to consider. But by and large, what you're having with this right here, you're having your pretty strong ridge that's kind of going to be populating it over here. Matter of fact, I can go ahead and show you those 500 millibar height anomalies just to show you exactly what I'm talking about. So you have a pretty strong ridge over here that's remaining over there, and it's going to be pretty strong moving forward. And yes, you do have some weak troughs over here, but ultimately you have this going on for the next 4 days, next 5 days, and then you do have a trough populating it, but this ridge really starts to rebuild and really starts to turn up and allow for the system to drive further and further to the west, and that's something you're going to want to pay attention to. And then you have this back ridge building up right here that's basically going to prevent this system from going out to sea. So I know David was talking about this and about the system going out to sea, but basically the basic synoptic conditions for this system pretty much prevent this from going out to sea at this current point, because you have a pretty strong ridge over Canada, and then you have another strong ridge that's starting to build behind it. It pretty much keeps it from going out to sea. So pretty much its only option is to either move further up to the north or move further to the west. But given kind of the strong ridging that's going on in Colorado and areas and parts of the Rocky Mountains over here, it's going to end up driving to the northwest at this current point. And yes, there is a weak trough over here that kind of also plays a factor into it just a little bit. But by and large, you have this ridge really building up right here. And this is a very favorable westward shift and a very favorable land-based shift for tropical cyclones right here. So that is something you're going to want to pay attention to. The basic synoptic conditions support a further westward movement, and that's something you're going to want to pay attention to as well. And another thing I do want to point out is this has been a very consistent situation that we've had right here. So I want to also make that clear as well. This has been the same situation spitting out in terms of the synoptics for the last week or so. So that's being said right there. Hopefully that kind of sets the record straight, and hopefully that can kind of clear the air in that regards. So with that being said, let's go ahead and go to the GFS right here. We're going to use the 0Z GFS as well. GFS is also interesting because the 0Z GFS also is a bit off, in my opinion. It has the same vorticity issues that it's been having recently, and it kind of has the system developing right off the coast of Africa, which, by the way, that's not going to happen at this current point. It's going to wait for probably at least 3 to 4 days before it even starts to get organized and get its act together, so I do want to make that clear. But it then starts to drive westward as a hurricane. Now, granted, this is taking into account this is already developed off the coast of Africa, which, in my opinion, is not going to happen. And it's going to be, by the time it approaches the Lesser Antilles and moves north of there, potentially a Category 3 hurricane over there, which, if that were to happen, that would be a very big and very concerning problem with that. But ultimately, I don't see this as a scenario, and you're going to want to pay attention to that as well. And then as the system heads towards the Bahamas, kind of moves through there, it's a 940 millibar system. That's a Category 4 hurricane, as it's potentially going to be approaching the United States right there. So you're going to want to pay attention to that as well. I know there is a bit of a low pressure system that could yank it a bit further to the east right here, but this ridge is building up right here as well. And if you look at the upper level dynamics right here, yeah, you have a pretty strong ridge being built up over here, and you do have this trough that might try to pull this hurricane by the time it gets to this point further to the east. But ultimately, the 0Z GFS has the system making landfall in North Carolina, so that's a big thing you're going to want to pay attention to. And this is about 12 days out, so still we're within the realm of uncertainty with this. But at this current rate, we're getting less in the realm of uncertainty and getting more and more towards reality, because before we were thinking, okay, yeah, we'll wait and see how this pans out. There's still a lot of uncertainty regardless of what's going on. But at this current rate, it's becoming less uncertain and more consistent. And this is a trend you're going to go, okay, you're going to want to take this more seriously. It's been tagged by the NHC. From this point, we're going to want to watch this. So that's your GFS run as well. Curiously, another tropical wave that comes off of the coast of Africa, actually, in the next 5 to 6 days, moves further to the west, and it actually makes a potential impact towards the Caribbean. None of the other models have reciprocated this scenario just yet, so you're going to want to keep an eye on it. But ultimately, we're going to want to pay attention to that. Maybe it's just the GFS being the GFS. We'll know by 12Z and 0Z tomorrow, so that's what we have for the GFS run. Next thing we'll show you is the Canadian run. Canadian run has been pretty interesting, having the system yanked even further up to the north and having the system slowly organize and develop as it's approaching the Lesser Antilles, and then it starts strengthening up to hurricane strength. The CMC, interestingly, actually is projecting a stronger low-pressure system and a stronger ridge than both the European and GFS, which personally I think is not really going to happen at this current point unless something unexpected happens. But the CMC is also picking up on it. The Canadian's picking up on hurricane strength by 10 days out. So now the models are more and more in lockstep. They're going, okay, we're locking in right here. We're going to want to watch this. So that's your Canadian run. And that's the thing we'll show you is the Icon. Icon's been pretty interesting. right here. The icon has the system organizing and developing as it moves further to the west. It actually heads towards the Lesser Antilles right here. 1,005 millibar system, and then it starts to really bottom out. We're at a 997 millibar tropical storm. It's actually pretty large and a pretty broad area of rotation, I will say, on the icon. And personally, I don't think it accurately reflects on what the structure is going to be at that current point, but we'll have to pay attention and see how this will pan out. So that's what we have for you for the modeling right now. Next thing we'll go ahead and show you briefly is the conditions that this system is going to be moving through. So we can go ahead and and take a quick gander at those right now. So this is what we have to start for you, ladies and gentlemen. These are your sea surface temperatures. And part of the reason the system's not as favorable to develop right away is because of those water temps. Yes, they are warm off the coast of Africa, but as you get deeper into the main development region, and especially if it gets yanked further to the northwest, you're looking at 25 to 26 degrees Celsius around the Cabo Verde Islands. So let's say it gets yanked up that far to the north. It's going to need to take its time and move into warmer waters before it can even do anything for tropical development. But let's say we move that about 100 miles or so to the south. You're still going to be in an area of about 26-ish, 27-ish degrees Celsius waters, which would be more favorable for tropical development. But as you move further to the west, you're looking at your 27s, your 28s, your 29 degrees Celsius temps over here. And then as the system moves through the Atlantic Basin and moves north of the Greater Antilles, you're looking at a very consistent area of 29 degrees Celsius. So that's something you're going to want to pay attention to. And then if it moves that far to the west, 30 to 31 degrees Celsius along these regions right here, off the Bahamas and Florida, that is a big kahuna you're going to want to watch right here. The big kahuna that we've been watching for quite some time, actually. So that's your water temps. Next thing we'll show you is the ocean heat content. OHC is also going to be a lot better further to the west as well, especially as you move into the southwestern Atlantic. And as we've been talking about quite a bit in our videos, anything that moves into the southwestern Atlantic, given the conditions that are going to be over there, is going to take off pretty quickly. And this is part of the reason right here. You have plenty of OHC, well over 100 OHC in a lot of these areas as well. So you're going to want to keep close tabs on that as well. Next thing we'll go ahead and show you is the wind shear, because that is also going to be pretty critical. We'll show you the 0Z Europeans wind shear forecast with this, because that'll be probably the most accurate we can reflect on this. Pretty much all the way out right here, despite this huge area of wind shear right here, which is going to be weakening, this is favorable for development. This is very favorable for tropical development, and you're going to want to pay attention to that, especially as the system moves further to the west. Look at this. Open for business. Those are the three words I have been saying the last few videos, and this is a case in point, shut case of that. I know I said that word twice, but it still stands. That is a very big concern of mine moving forward. Now, the main thing we're going to want to watch is the dry air, and that's going to be something to watch as well. There is some dry air to the northwest of this over here, but right now where this system is, it's in a very big moisture pocket, and especially with that rotation to the south in the Gulf of Guinea, it's going to only be reinforced by that. So that's something to pay attention to. And that moisture pocket is expected to persist throughout the entire time, and the dry air is really not going to get into to there at this current point. So you're going to want to pay attention to that. But basically, by the time we get to the Lesser Antilles, you have a pretty robust moisture pocket that's mixing out a lot of the dry air and kind of being able to sustain its own convection. So that's something to pay attention to, and that's something we'll have to continue to keep you updated on here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. But if you're in the Lesser Antilles, if you're in the Bahamas, if you're in the east coast of the United States, you're going to absolutely want to take this very seriously. We're going to be live streaming tonight to kind of go over more data and more information, so be sure you stay tuned for that. But with that being said, we're closing the video out right here. I really hope you enjoyed it. Like the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Goal, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe. quick update. 97L is now up to a 10-50% probability from the NHC. That's the first thing. The second thing, we have a very high ceiling already from this model guidance. This is going to be a wild ride.